Hello and welcome to another IUX webinar. And today we're going to be talking about building digital skills for the modern workplace. And I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, who is a very dear friend, as well as my brother-in-law, Nada Nanjiani. And Nada is a product marketing leader with more than 20 years, I'm making him too old, 20 years of technology marketing experience at Fortune 500 companies. At Amazon Web Services, AWS, Nada heads the marketing for the government and the non-profit segments. Prior to Amazon, Nada worked for Cisco. He has also co-authored 2 books, one on collaboration and another on e-learning, and has secured a patent on a game application. Nada completed his graduate studies at Harvard University, Syracuse University, as well as here in Karachi, the Institute of Business Administration at Karachi University. So we are very, very delighted to welcome Nada. Let's bring him in. Hi, Nada.
Thank you so much for that welcome, George. Assalamu alaikum to all the guests and the students. And it's a pleasure to be here with IUX.
So obviously, what we're talking about today is this, building digital skills for a changing workspace. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, so let me start by adding a caveat. Any thoughts, any ideas that I share with your students today are my own. I'm here in a personal capacity, but over the years, having worked in the industry over the last 20 years, but more importantly, observing what we've seen in the last 2 those that started after the COVID restrictions were put in place, we've seen a remarkable shift in accelerating the changes that we were expecting over the next 5 to 10 years that have just taken place in 2. So this accelerating rate of change of technology adoption is definitely impacting the workforce as well. And the changing workplace means that your students have to be now prepared for an environment that their parents or their faculty or their elders are also experiencing for the first time. So they're basically going into this new digital workplace with not too much in terms of guidance on how to navigate it. So that's why this conversation is important. So let me give you an example of why I think audiences, whether they are students or faculty within ICRA, should pay attention to this topic. If you look at the exports, the biggest export, well, let me ask you this. What do you think is the biggest export of Pakistan, George?
Well, textiles, isn't it?
Exactly. It's 4 billion a year. All right. Now, interestingly, the IT exports is only 2 billion a year, but the IT export in 2021 grew more than 40% over the previous year. Now, it doesn't take too much math to figure out that if you keep growing the IT exports at a rate of 40% year over year, it won't be too long on a base of 2 billion for it to exceed textile exports. So the opportunity for growth, for future job creation, for improved standards of living, for having a white-collar revolution, for women empowerment, for additional foreign exchange is immense if organizations, companies, and colleges focus on that IT skill set and digital skill set. Go ahead.
And I think you're absolutely right that obviously COVID was an unforeseen event, but it also provided an unforeseen opportunity because it accelerated the adoption of digital skills by people. But also, I think there was a realization that suddenly, if we could be having meetings digitally like this on Zoom, it suddenly it opened up the borders for us in a way that hadn't been opened up before. And suddenly we realized that actually I could be providing my skill set, not just to a Pakistani audience, but I could be providing it to a Dubai audience or US, UK, wherever, but whilst situated in my apartment or my house in Pakistan.
You've raised an excellent point. And this remote work or work from home has now made it clear for organizations that borders or countries are not as much of a barrier when it comes to attracting talent. What that also tells you is that if you're an employer in Pakistan that is looking for top talent with digital skills to navigate this new changing workplace, then be prepared for that talent to be pursued by other employers from other countries that are looking to recruit for their organizations as well. So you are no longer in sort of control of the salaries. And it's great news for the highly talented, the highly skilled, because now they are not constrained by just the employers and the employer bases and salaries set by those within the region or within the country. They are able to export their talents anywhere. I just want to clarify one thing. We're talking about digital skills and digital transformation and a digital environment and a digital workplace. But I want to make sure that your audiences understand what we mean by that. What we are doing right now is a form of e-learning or engagement, student engagement. That's perfect. That's one example. There are other examples as well. So, for instance, you can imagine e-learning, of course, but also working from home. You can imagine e-commerce. You can imagine digital banking. You can imagine e-health, where consults are taking place between doctors and patients like this. So this impact of digitization is cutting across all verticals, all sectors. And that means in each of those sectors, there is demand for people who can help create and manage this capability. Now, why do you want to create and manage this capability? Why can't we just go back to the way things were before COVID? Well, citizens, users, students, patients, all of these individuals now realize that this option is available. So it saves time, it saves money, and it allows the providers to be more efficient in providing their services. So a doctor can see far more patients this way than having to visit the clinic if all it needs is a virtual consult.
And likewise, me as a patient, would prefer to not wait in a hot waiting room for an hour and a half whilst the doctor is ready, and I could just get a ping and saying the doctor is going to be available in the next 2 minutes, and then I just log online.
Exactly.
So it
these
saves
are the
me
easy
time.
examples. Yeah, these are the easy examples. But there's also a lot of this going on in the supply chain. There's also a lot of this digital transformation going on in how products are being built. So not only are there changes to what kind of digital solutions or digital products are being launched that we can see and experience, there's also a lot of digital transformation that's taking place in the back end. How services are delivered. For instance, we used to have a data center, and on that data center, a bank or a hospital or a government institution or a university or a business relied for its IT services. So the data center was transparent to the end customer, but it caused certain bottlenecks in terms of how quickly they could innovate, because every time they wanted to try a new solution or a new software, they had to order a server, wait 8 weeks for the server to come online and everything. It was expensive to experiment. It was experiment to start new things. And as a result, there was a lag in how quickly an IT department could ratchet up its capabilities to serve the needs of its organization. Well, now data centers are going by the wayside and people are relying on cloud computing. So these are also sorts of changes that are taking place as part of digital transformation that's behind the scenes from what most people observe. And that also is creating opportunity for faster innovation and demand in terms of managing those changes, even at the back end. So there is the changes that we see at the front end, we see in the back end, and all of that combined is creating the pressure for a workplace where more and more digital skills are needed. And those digital skills have to come not just from engineering or technical people, they also have to be shown by business audiences. So,
I was going to ask you that because, you know, there might be skeptics listening in at the moment saying, yeah, I don't do computer science. I'm not into that. Why do I need to build digital skills?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Exactly.
what would your
Well,
answer
let's
be
take
to
a
that?
look. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think digital skills are everybody's responsibility, and I will show you a case in point. So take a look at this, George. If you would share with your audience an infographic that I've pulled for you that just came out in 2022, March of 2022. Okay, so digital skills, especially those related to cloud, are increasingly important. So what you see here is 88% of the organization report improved employee productivity, uh, you know, by training them in digital skills.
Yeah,
And also, if you look at some of the skill sets that are listed at the bottom, the top 5 in-demand digital skills by 2025,
yeah,
um, it's things like cybersecurity, it's things like cloud computing, but you can also see in there digital marketing. Now, digital marketing is not something that is restricted to an engineer. Marketing people have to be digital ready. HR folks have to run all of their HR
yeah.
functions on a digital platform. So clearly, the in-demand skills are not just limited to those who are of an engineering bent, but also those who are of a business bent. Also, I want to point out is that all of these technologies create markets for business people to get involved and serve other customers. So if they have a baseline understanding that is enough to be able to explain a product or be able to understand a solution deeply, not necessarily from a technical perspective, from a business perspective, that's most relevant. I was also going to mention that there is a concern that workers are not getting trained fast enough. So this study that I just shared with you was for digital skills in APJ, which is Asia, Pacific, and Japan. And even in those markets, which is India and Indonesia and Singapore and the ASEAN countries or Thailand or Korea or Japan, we're noticing tremendous shortfall for IT skills. And you might say, well, what difference does it make to me? I'm sitting in Pakistan. We spoke about it a minute ago. If there is shortfall of technology professionals in those countries, they will reach out to places like Pakistan to recruit. You
So
can move
what
to
does
those
this mean?
countries or work.
What does this mean for
I think
Pakistan?
it means, yeah. So if you stop thinking about countries and you start to think about global demand, it's clear that digital skills, there will be a shortfall, no matter how many graduates ICRA can create in computer science, in IT support, in digital skills. They will all get used up one way or the other. Now, what is the one requirement? What you don't want to create is graduates who are book graduates. You want to create graduates who are relevant in the industry. So the one key
What do you mean by
criteria that every student that needs to think about is, am I at a given point in time relevant for an employer or a customer or in the industry? It's not sufficient that you get an A. It's terrific that you get an A. You should always get an A grade because that shows a pursuit of excellence, which is in itself a virtue. Absolutely do that. But at the same time, realize that you're taking courses, you're taking curriculum, which allow you to be relevant for the industry. And if you keep that in mind, then there is no reason why with these digital skills, you will not be able to make a great living for yourself. Now, here's the one point I want to make. I don't want to right now put the pressure on the government. I'm putting the pressure on the listener, you, George, because you're involved in delivering education. I'm going to put the pressure on any listeners right now who are faculty members. I want to put the pressure on any students who are listening to this. The responsibility to rise up and prepare for these digital skills is in your hands. If you say that I'm waiting for the government to do something, that is not the right approach. You don't want to wait for anybody. The opportunity is presenting itself. You can learn skills, you can develop skills through all of the multitudes of resources that are available to you right now on the internet. by talking to your faculty members, see what kind of jobs are out there and be able to prepare for those. So if many individuals take advantage of these opportunities, talk to companies which are doing IT export, talk to the new startups that are starting. I mean, Airlift, Bazaar, Daraz, is one after another. Amazing IT companies that have been formed, or I shouldn't say IT companies, IT-based businesses that have been formed in recent years in Pakistan, which also present opportunities for employment. So if you are committed to being a quality professional and you make that commitment to yourself as a student or as a faculty member, you're committed to teaching your students quality information that's relevant, there is no reason why someone graduating in the next few years or so, in the next 5 to 10 years, should not be able to, with digital skills, make a very good career and a living for themselves.
So what do you envisage the workplace of the future will look like? I mean, we're talking about a changing workspace. What's it going to be? Are we all going to work from home? Is that what it's going to be? Or what does it look like?
Yeah. I think we have to see. So I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So you said, what will the future look like? So let me just mention that to you. Look, we think a lot about natural resources. We think about how much cotton does Pakistan grow. We think about how much oil or gas can we excavate. Is there gold mines or offshore drilling taking? So right now, the workplace or in our conversations within Pakistan, there's a lot of discussion around natural resources. Should be. But the future of any nation is determined not by its natural resources, but by its human resources. So
that then brings us to the question is what do you propose Pakistan should do to build that digital talent?
Yes. So to build that, they need to have, the focus on fostering these individuals. I mean, as a government, you would want to make sure that the talent is supported, and by creating opportunities for these talented individuals to get relevant corporate certifications, give them the scholarships if they're needed, so that they can take the training that they need in order to be certified in areas where there's a global demand. The government could also invest in its own workforce, people who work in government organizations, because unless and until the government changes the way it thinks about delivering services, there will be bottlenecks.
Yeah,
Constituents are growing.
It's really interesting you say that, because you look at some of the government services that are offered.
Yeah.
So, for example, NADRA, I think, is a real success story
Yes.
that we've seen over the years. It's fully digitized, it's really efficient. You get
Yes.
your passport or your national identification card very quickly. It's all data driven. It's all digitized, and it's perfect. But then you go to other government departments, and it's like being back in the Stone Ages, where everything is written on triplicate and in ledgers and everything else. And and I think there is that sort of inconsistency that is happening there at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to also understand that Pakistan is a very youthful country. About 60% or more of its population is still under the age of 30. So you have a population that's very much digital native, all perhaps well after internet came along. And they all know and have grown with digital technologies. So you have a base of users and consumers and developers who are talented technically. Also, you have to understand this digital transformation boom that's taking place is also going to allow organizations to scale their services, because when you're a country like Pakistan, it is not always possible to reach faraway places by investments in whether it be clinics or additional colleges or additional facilities for whatever that service might be. The digital capabilities allow one to scale. And by scaling, we mean being able to reach more and more of your audience. So all of these great opportunities for businesses, for government, but most importantly for young, smart, and talented individuals to take advantage of this digital boom, the digital transformation boom, and make themselves a part of it somehow. And like I mentioned, a great way to start is to look at industry certifications, which allow individuals to find employment at a fairly fast clip and be relevant in the industry.
And that is where I can come in with a little plug for ICRA University Extension, IUX, which provides just those very certifications. We provide various digital certifications from digital marketing for associate degrees and various other skill sets that we are enhancing the digital workspace with. So please go online to our Hamada website to find out more about the digital certifications that we offer. And again, I think you tapped on it earlier, Nada, which I think is really interesting. It's not just the students or the youth that can benefit from this. You mentioned sort of women and women empowerment, and I think that one area that we're looking to sort of target in terms of our courses is those women who've perhaps married, had children, and are now at a stage in life when they want to do something. Perhaps the children are a little bit older, and they want to bring in additional income and resources to the family. And I think that's a really untapped market here in Pakistan, because often these women have qualified with skills when they graduated, and now they can be brought back into the workforce with the necessary digital skills.
I bring up an excellent point that you raised here. This may not be relevant today. I looked at some Pew research, which said once they've had children, about 20% of the women who are working women want to go back to work. Another 20% who are working women prefer not to go back to work because they want to spend time with their children. Another 60%, bulk of them, do want to spend more time with them, but they also want the opportunity to have some flexible hours of part-time work so they can continue to keep their professional skills intact. So what you raised is an excellent point. There is a lot of untapped talent within the ranks of young moms who might be interested in participating in professional endeavors, provided the sphere of their work-life balance or within the sphere of the schedule. For instance, if you're not requiring people to come from home, a young mom has the option to work from, if you're not calling people in the office from home when the kids are in school. They also have the option to take courses and develop their skills so that they can be suitable advisors and consultants, and maybe even instructors. So depending on the talent that we have, and many, I've known recently that you're finding in intermediate results, the FSC and the, I think they call it the high school grades, are not as good or better for young women than it is for young men. So a lot of our talent is with that, that gender. And in order for women to engage, we need to make sure that the workplace is conducive to their needs. And as I mentioned earlier, 86% of talent. So we can take two approaches. We can either be about tradition of the workplace and how it used to be, where people would come in, clock in at 8:30 or 8 or 9 in the morning, and then work till 5, and then get in their cars and go back to work and prepare dinner for the family and so on. Or we can be responsive to the times by looking at the opportunities ahead of us and say, hey, how do we fulfill these opportunities by thinking about the workplace, by thinking opportunities differently, and bringing in more and more of that talent that we have available to us within the country, within the region, within the city, to meet these demands. So where are these demands coming from? I just want to clarify. There is a major migration. So let me explain what happens really, George. What happens in businesses, even today, every day, is there a certain amount of guesswork. Um, George, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I just lost you for a little second. I can hear you now.
Okay. So let me where the digital transformation is really going to make an impact. Let me explain. There is still a lot of guesswork in business. There is still a lot of hit and miss in business. And there is still a lot of trial and error in business. That Let me give you an example of each. Which product will succeed, which product will not? I'm sure you looked at statistics that will tell you a majority hit and miss. So a lot of times, many people make prediction that one out of my 7 or 10 or 6 attempts are going to work. So I'm going to invest in 7, 8, 10, and then one of them will take off. So that's what a hit and miss mindset when you're building products or launching businesses or investments. And then finally, the trial and error, the iteration. Anything you do for the first time, you stumble. You find that there are teething problems and you have to refine that. All of these things are costly to businesses. They've always been there. They've always been day one. And they remain in place. Over the years, we've gotten better. We still haven't taken the guesswork, the hit and miss mindset, or the trial and error out of the business. But what we now have is an opportunity to that, reduce the guesswork with empirical data. So you know exactly which of my features are actually working, and those are the ones I should be spending time building that are not being appreciated by the customer. Empirical evidence starting to replace guesswork to some extent. The hit mindset, instead of investing in duds and successes all the time, if you could more accurately pick which ones are going to be successful, you could probably improve your ratio of 1:10 of the products or 1:7 products being successful to maybe one out of 5, 1 out of 3, thereby reducing a lot of wastage. And similarly, in terms of trial and error, if you can go through trial and error at a low cost and quicker, then instead of running experiments that are 3 months long or 6 months long, and then finding out that a product needs tweaking and then going back to the drawing board and retweaking the product and launch, you could basically, through iteration, get to that decision in a month or 6 weeks, and thereby or relaunch a product quicker. So that is where the inefficient business, and that is where digital transformation, digital technologies, data, artificial intelligence are going to step in and make businesses more efficient. And that is where a huge amount of savings and a huge amount of wealth creation is going to happen. And the technology is now available for businesses to do that. And they're just looking for the talent that can help them set these processes and products up. Does that make sense, George?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I just wanted to sort of drill down a little bit into, we talked quite broadly on digital skills, but can you talk about sort of a little bit of specifics of what skills are the most desirable for employers? Because
if you don't mind, do you mind bringing up that infographic one more time? Yeah,
sure.
So feel free to share this infographic with your audience as well, if you can. Look at the right side. Do you mind reading out the right side of it and what you read? What you can see, George, for the benefit of the audience.
It says collective effort is needed to unlock future workforce potential. And then there's government, promote high demand digital skills course through online skill portals. Employers leverage free training courses provided by industry to upskill their workers. Training providers work with tech industry to develop courses that meet industry standards. And finally, workers earn micro-credentials through short-term courses to bridge urgent skills gap. Well, that's what we offer. We do those micro-credentials here at IUX, as well as obviously other training and certifications.
Could you just, for the benefit of the audience, George, also cite the...
On the side on the left, top 5 in-demand digital skills by 2025.
There you go.
Use of cloud-based tools. So yes, you've talked about, cloud-based technology. Cybersecurity, again, that's a course we offer here at IUX. technical or IT support, digital marketing, again, that's a course we offer as well, and cloud migration. What's the difference between cloud migration and use of cloud-based tools? I don't quite understand
Yes.
the difference there.
Is the skill to go ahead and build inside the cloud, create apps, create solutions, be able to work with cloud technologies. Okay, so anything you decide to do it in the cloud, great. Well, do you know, George, that there is still a lot of mainframe out there? There's a lot of on-premises IT solutions already in place that are what we call already in place. What about those? So we can keep building new stuff in the cloud. What about bringing the stuff that's been there for almost a generation, needs to be updated, to be upgraded? What about moving that over? That is called migration. Building inside cloud is one thing, managing cloud is one thing, but taking what's existing and moving that over is a challenge of its own. And there is immense demand for that. George, for the benefit of the audience, could you just, at the footnote, just read out the source of this data and which were the countries that were surveyed to come to this
You're going to be testing my eyesight.
Yeah, I know. Better you than I.
It's the 7 AP countries covered in this study are Australia, India, Indonesia, Japan, New Zealand, Singapore, and South Korea.
There
and
you
the source is Alpha Beta, which is part of the Access Partnership, commissioned by Amazon Web Services, which is your company. Before we talk a little bit about Amazon Web Services, hold on. I wanted to bring in some questions from the audience, if that's okay. So let's just bring in some of the questions. Zara has saying very relevant and informative conversation going there. Okay, that's very kind. Mariam, such an informative session. Kudos to speaker and RUX.
Thank you.
Zara is also looking forward to more digital marketing sessions. Okay, so great. Well, let's talk a little bit about Amazon Web Services. What are the areas that students can learn more about Amazon? I mean, you are a senior marketer for AWS. Could you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah. So a couple of things that are going on, George. One is I want to make sure that the audience understands that there are two sides to Amazon. One side is the e-commerce side that most people are familiar with. It's the Amazon, we go online, it's the e-commerce side of the business where you place an order, products get shipped to your house and so on. That business is actually now, you can run that business out of Pakistan. There are companies who've been doing that. They're doing that. Utopia is one company that comes to mind. It's an amazing job shipping or selling as a merchant on Amazon.com to global markets around the world.
Well, funny you should say that. We had a workshop yesterday with somebody who was teaching people how to develop and grow their business to sell on Amazon, because it's a really growing business here.
Yes, exactly. So that is the one side of the Amazon business that's available to Pakistani students, Pakistani entrepreneurs to evaluate, consider, learn more about. Then the other side of it is Amazon Web Services. This is where we talked about cloud computing, cloud technologies, digital transformation, and how you can use Amazon tools to influence change within business organizations. Now, just want to let you know that more of 13% of Amazon's revenue comes from Amazon Web Services, and a bulk of its profits come from Amazon Web Services. So what you have to see is the growth rates. The growth rates are remarkable in the space as well. For Amazon Web Services, I would encourage each and every individual who's listening to go and look at the AWS cloud practitioner exam. Each and every individual who is a business major, a marketing major, a technology major, or a technical, each and every individual can benefit from that certification because it teaches about cloud.
How do they go about that certificate?
So if you just type AWS Cloud Practitioner Exam in Google, it'll take you to that page. It's free instruction, free training on English. You can find it if you want to do other sources. You want to go to Udemy or Cloud, some other provider, be our guest. There are many organizations. It's available. Free instructions is available around that exam on YouTube. But however you choose to learn it or however you choose to prepare for it, once you're prepared for it, you should go ahead and take an exam. And it's an exam that will demonstrate your understanding of not just cloud technologies, but your understanding of how the entire IT stack works when enabling digital transformation within an organization. What are some of the considerations that CIOs have? What are the considerations that an has? Look, no longer is technology only for the IT department. Technology is germane to the entire organization. It's imperative for the CEO, the chief marketing officer, the chief financial officer. So your understanding of technology, no matter which business you end up, which department of a business you end up being a part of, if you're going to specialize in finance or marketing or operations, it doesn't matter. You need to have a baseline understanding of how technology can fit into whatever processes you're running. And to be prepared for that, you should be learn and develop yourself. George, there's one very important thing I want to tell each and every individual student, especially that's listening to us. Your job is not done when you finish college. Lifelong learning is a commitment you'll need to make. This is a cradle to grave deal. You'll have to be learning all along. The second thing I want to mention is
can I just cut you off?
Oh, there you go. Lifelong learning. You have it.
We are the center of excellence for lifelong learning at IUX.
Okay.
That's because we actually believe that it's not about you get. I mean, in the old days, you sort of had your education and then that's it, and then you went into work. We believe that obviously the world of work is changing at such a rapid rate. In order to evolve, you're constantly going to have to learn throughout your career.
So make a commitment to lifelong learning. You're going to have to learn throughout. But more importantly, when you come out of college, your college does not give you all you need to succeed. But your college education, your college degree does give you the ability to learn. And that ability allows you to take on new challenges, new learning opportunities, and master those. So what the college should teach students is the ability, not just content, not just knowledge, but the ability to new information, to be able to learn new skills as time progresses.
Think laterally, think creatively. I mean, again, another of the I remember reading a McKinsey report recently, which was talking about the skill set of the future. And obviously there was a huge component on digital skills, which we've talked about today, but there was also skills in terms of creativity are going to be the skills of the future. And being able to work in teams and being able to work in laterally and think laterally. Those are the sort of skills that we need to be inculcating in our students in order.
Absolutely, no question about that. One other thing I want to tell you is, being able to, be abreast of what's happening in the industry. So third thing, so commitment to lifelong learning, the ability to learn new things as you go on. And the third is industry relevant content. So you could be learning a lot of things, but make sure the more you invest in industry relevant content, the quicker you will be able to make that impact in the industry and be able to partake of this enormous opportunity that is presented in front of you at this moment to be developing digital skills in Pakistan and being able to present your capabilities, present your skills to a global audience where you can make a contribution and not only make an impact on organizations, on employers, and on customers, but also make a terrific career for ourselves.
Great. Well, Jaysha Sheikh has said great information, so thank you for that. And thank you, Nada, today for taking the time out to speak with us. We really appreciate it. I think we've covered quite a lot of ground. So just to sort of conclude, I suppose,
Yes.
it would be to say that obviously digital skills are going to be the skills of the future for everyone, not just IT. It's going to be a cross-function, and everyone needs to be able to adopt them. We need to be able to be lifelong learners in order to absorb the changes that are required for digital training. And in terms of where we're moving is obviously to cloud-based solutions rather than more traditional forms of data management. And the students of the future need to be able to adapt and grow and learn these skills if they're in order to thrive. And IUX has all these certificates to provide the necessary skills for them to survive.
Amazing. I'm so glad that your organization is making a commitment to that extension, that effort to reach out to professionals, mid-careers, and get them going as well, because they can certainly make a difference in their
And you know,
leveraging the experience in new directions. Yeah.
And let's talk about just quickly before we go. I mean, you've done that. You've obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you're a graduate of IBA here in Karachi, but also Syracuse in New York.
Yes.
But you've done sort of certifications and trainings throughout your career.
Yes.
But some of them obviously funded by your employers, but some also self-funded.
Yes, exactly. I mean, now I'm not talking to so many students as much because they're obviously.
Oops, we've lost you a little bit, Nada. Hello? Hey? Let me see if we can bring him back in. Nada? Oh, I think, well, perhaps that was let's see if we can try and bring him back in one more time. No, I think perhaps there's been a technical glitch. Well, all it remains for me is to thank our guest today, Nada Nanjiani from Amazon Web Services in the States, to talk to us about the digital skills for the workplace of the future. That was really, really interesting, and we will be continuing more of these webinars in the future, so please join us. Until then, goodbye.